Hey, Jim.
Hi, Steve.
So, I'm looking for a record. I just called to say I love you. Do you have it?
Yeah.
Great.
We have it.
Great. Can I have it then?
No, you can't.
Why not?
Well, it's sentimental, tacky crap. That's why not. Do we look like the kind of store that sells I just called to say I love you? Go to the mall.
Okay, everyone. Welcome once again to Two Guys Talking About Records, a vinyl community podcast. Steve, I hope I treat people nicer than that.
Well, you do, but I would sure love to be the guy sitting, the other one listening to all of that. The customer go, wow, this is awesome.
Well, hey, everyone. My name is Jim. I am a record store owner. That's going to come into play today.
And I'm Steve, and I am a record collector.
So as we mentioned, this is Two Guys Talking About Records, a vinyl community podcast. We are chugging along with this, Steve, and I'm having a blast. We're getting lots of great comments from folks, and I'm just having fun. I hope you are too with us.
Yeah, this is a great time. I've seen some of the comments, and it's a lot of fun. I'm glad people are enjoying it and tuning back in again.
I know that's really cool for you folks. Thank you again. We're still working. I think after Record Store Day, I'm going to redouble my efforts to get this into the Apple and Spotify. I know that some folks have been giving us hints for that, but I need to get through next week first.
Then we can work to the big time.
Yeah.
Yes. All right.
Look out, Joe Rogan. We're coming for you.
Yes.
So before we get into the topic of today's show, which is kind of the follow-up to last week's topic about record store etiquette, and this is what your record store should and shouldn't be doing, I need to put that disclaimer out there. As a record store owner, I'm going to have some very strong opinions on this, but I do recognize that not all record stores are alike, and there's different markets, there's different sizes, there's different types of personalities that come into play. So I'm going to have to be kind of careful. I'm going to ask you to keep me in check again.
I will, and as a record collector, I have a lot of personal opinions on this, especially in my travels. I've been to so many different record stores, and some I'll go back, some I will not.
And this should be a great conversation. But first, as we always do, what kind of pickups did you get this last week for the personal collection? Anything cool?
Yeah, there was one of them. It's an album from last year. It's a group called Just Mustard out of Ireland, and I still haven't figured out why they called themselves Just Mustard. And it's called Heart Under. It's kind of a shoegaze, but industrial. So these guitars, it sounds like machinery going on. There's sirens, and it's just made with the guitars, and the vocals are pushed way down, almost like a dream pop shoegaze. Fascinating album, and I've been playing that one a lot. From Radio Wasteland, I picked up Robin Hitchcock and the Egyptians' Queen Elvis.
Because, I remember that. Yeah, you had to wrestle it out of my hands.
Yes, Madonna and the Wasp. Madonna of the Wasp. Such a favorite song. But when you listen to it, you think of two people, John Lennon, Syd Barrett. He sounds so much like them. Yep. And his lyrics are pretty much like a Barrett, very whimsical, kind of all over the place. He was a weird dude.
I did hear your analogy on that this morning on your Sunday morning show, which folks should check out on your YouTube channel, by the way. But it's a great analogy. And, Hitchcock's been around for a long time, but that is, I think, one of his top albums.
I agree. Then Jason Isbell, he's coming out with a brand new album, but I used to have a couple of his that I haven't brought back yet, so I went out and I brought in Southeastern. They put out in 2013, and his first one with Jason Isbell on the 400 unit. That one has Alabama Pines, which is like his most famous song, and that came out in 2011. So those are just two of my favorite albums. They're pretty inexpensive now. So I picked those up. And the other one was I bought here, a reissue of Maggot Brain from Funkadelic. Everything I find or I see of it's just trashed. It's in bad shape. The vinyl's not good. It's a well-loved album. And I just kind of forget it and went with this reissue on beautiful splatter vinyl. Sounds fantastic and good to have back in the collection.
It looks great, too. Quick side note on the Jason Isbell stuff. Isbell, along with Amanda Shires, are the ambassadors for next week's Record Store Day event. And they do have, I believe, a 12-inch EP of the two of them together coming out on that day as well.
Well, Talk about tying in. I didn't even know that.
There we go. So my pickups this week, speaking of the funk, I brought the funk, kind of, with 4 pickups. The first, and I had seen this album before. It's from Rare Earth, and it's an album simply entitled Ma. And, I like Rare Earth. They're a Michigan band, and you know them most for Get Ready, just a complete side of 1 LP jam tune. This one has a song called Ma, which is, of course, the title track, that also takes up 1 entire side, and it is a funky jam tune to boot.
Oh, neat. Yeah, the album cover's hilarious, by the way. Kind of looks like a huge naked ma on a rocking horse, but it's just funny. But that's neat. Just one side of that.
One side that's a jam. These guys were originally on Motown, and then they moved on to their own Rare Earth label, which I believe was connected to Motown.
It is, yes.
Yeah, so they carried that funk forward, even though they were just kind of a Michigan garage rock band, but they had that underlying funk. So this is a good one. I've not had it before. I'm very, very excited to be jamming to that one. Then I picked up a copy, a music on vinyl copy of Shuggie Otis's first album, Here Comes Shuggie Otis. Familiar with him as an artist from his second album, which is just some great funk. So I picked this one up because the music on vinyl was a good deal. I'm not disappointed, but it's not as good as his second album, in my opinion.
Okay. I just keep thinking Shuggie Bear from, what was that show? But very nice.
Sugar Bear. And then the other 2 pickups were, these are what I call provisional additions to the personal collection. It's the Paul Winter Consort, or the Winter Consort with Paul Winter, Something in the Wind, and Icarus. These are kind of a fusion-y sound of jazz and classical music, which sometimes I'm in the mood for. I think probably a more contemporary one that you'd be familiar with would be in the 80s and 90s, a Spyro Gyra or a Jean-Luc Ponty. It's got that light, airy sound to it with some woodwinds and some violin popping throughout. But these, coming from the late 60s and early 70s, have almost a folk psych sound to them, mixed with classical. So I'm not completely sold on them yet. I picked up the Something in the Wind because it's a white label promo, and I have that proclivity to like those. But Icarus is kind of it's obviously telling the story of Icarus. It's a concept album, and it's very, very Spyro Gyra-ish, but much older than. Some cool additions there. Yeah. That's what I had going this week.
Very nice.
So onward to our topic at hand. Last week, as you might recall, we talked about record store etiquette, and something that, whether you're a returning customer or brand new to the vinyl world, some things that you should have kept in mind or keep in mind when you visit record stores. If you haven't heard that yet, back up and check that episode out. But we thought we'd follow that up this week with the flip side of that coin, being what should your record store be doing and or not doing to make that vinyl experience for the customers even better. And again, I want to put this disclaimer out there that I've owned and run Radio Wasteland Records now for well over 6 years. And before that, I was a record collector and went to my share of record stores as well. So I've got opinions from both sides of the coin on this one. So I may be a little bit jaded because I like doing things the way I like doing things as a record store owner. But that's not always the case. And I do recognize that different stores, as I mentioned earlier, have different types of personalities. They serve different markets to different means. And so what works for one store, like ours here, may not work for some others, whether smaller or larger.
Yeah, and so if it's different in your town, that might be what you're used to. So you just go, well, this is normal. And someone else comes in from an airport and go, well, why would it be this way? Well, why wouldn't it be? And I've seen that as I've gone around. Yeah.
You have been to your fair share.
I've probably been over 100 record stores in my life, easily, yes.
And all around the country.
Yes, all around the country, yes.
So first and foremost, I had a kind of a toss-up for what my number one thing would be for a record store do or don't. And it's a toss-up in my mind between organization of the product or cleanliness of the records. But I think I'm going to have to go with organization first and foremost above. Where does that stand with you?
I would say that's top. And the reason why is time is money. When I come in, it's easier for me, especially if you have a list and you kind of know what you're looking for. It's nice because it's organized. It's easy to find what you're looking for. Now, I understand those that like more chaos because you might find some hidden gem. If you have time, you can still do that. I'm always seems to be running and going from point A to point B. And so I like organization. I love bins that are nice, clean, they're alphabetized, easy to find what you're looking for. I just think it's very, very important. And by far.
We've both been to stores, though, too, where not only you've got this kind of a quasi-organization structure, but then you've just got piles. And I'm talking piles, not stacks, but piles laying flat of records or boxes stowed away. That, there's something about the excitement of a dig, but I can guarantee you that as a record store owner, anything that would be in that pile, I think would be gone through first to make sure there's no hidden gem in there.
When I was younger, I seemed to have more time. There was some record stores like that. And I would go in and I enjoyed looking through these boxes, trying to find out what's in there, maybe looking for a lost gem. I was buying a lot of $1, $2 records. I wasn't finding anything, to your point, super expensive because that had been pulled out. But for me, it was more about how many records can I get for this amount of money so I can have the world's biggest record collection. So they were fun to go through. Now my whole thought of collecting is different. It's not about how many records. I want certain records. And their organization comes in. It's very important.
And there's something to be said, too, for just the general look of clutter when you see something like that in piles. So I try to avoid that, and I'm not perfect here by any means. We have our share of piles, but they're hidden from the general public. But I still have some boxes of stuff that are out that are yet to go through. But we try to keep that to a minimum. The tail end of this, though, is do you like to see the inventory mixed? Granted, they'll be organized, but what about a mixture of new and used, as long as they're alphabetized?
Personally, for me, I like it together. That way, if I'm looking, if I want to look for a Rolling Stone album, I have a choice of a brand new one. I have a choice of a used one. I can look that over. I can make that decision instead of having to go to two different spots. I am more apt to buy more when it's put together. Now, many stores separate this. And so, you spend some time on the used. Now you go spend some time in the new. It takes longer. And if it's all together, time is money. Again, and this is just a personal opinion. If you have all day and this is what you want to do, you may enjoy that. But I really like to, here's everything you have from the Ramones. Now I can make my decision from that instead of, I wonder what's over there.
This adds one more facet to this. Separate by genre. There's nothing more maddening than seeing the Ramones right next to, say, a country album or a Rachmaninoff classical or something.
I was recently in a record store where it was all alphabetized, but not by genre. And so you're looking, and yes, it is like, Mantovani. Then suddenly you get into some country guy. Then there might be a rock. It took forever because I'm looking, trying to find something, but I'm weeding through all this crap I'm not interested in to find something that I want. And yes, genre specific, I want rock, I want punk, I want funk. Easier to go. Most record stores are that way, but once in a while you get one and you just kind of scratch your head. It's easier, I get it, if you're the owner. And it would be easier. I'm going to put it all. It's an F, so it's going to go there. I don't have to think about a genre. I understand that. But I think you can sell more when it's separated.
From the standpoint of the owner, I can agree with that, but it takes a second or two to look stuff up. I'm not absolutely perfect, and so I may come across something, and even though I cataloged it a month or two ago, it's like, okay, is this rock? Is this jazz? So I put it off to the side until I have a chance to look that back up and say, okay, that does go in the jazz. And then you get those artists once in a while that run that gamut.
Yeah.
That's a whole other story.
Yes.
But.
Yeah. There's a few of them. They're not sure what they want to be when they grow up. So let's have a jazzy one. Now we'll do a blues. Now rock. Yes.
So when we started the store, one of my big goals, and this came from the record collecting side of my experience, was to never put a price tag on the cover of a used piece of vinyl. That was just a tremendous pet peeve of mine as a collector because sometimes the stickers would come off, sometimes they wouldn't, or sometimes they damage that. Now, before we get into this, I have one story. This dovetails back a few weeks when we talked about antique store vinyl. I was actually in a larger antique mall several years ago, and they didn't put price tags on their records, which was great. They wrote the price on the back of the jacket. When I called them out on this and said, "What are you doing?" They said, "Well, we put it in pencil." It's like, that doesn't really make a difference. So this is going to be another big one for me too. And this is again, is a personal one. I go out of my way to make sure there are no stickers on the cover. And to that end, we put everything in a piece of poly sleeve.
Yeah, you do a very good job with that. I know I'll come in, you're pulling labels off, someone's collection that they brought in, and yes, everything is in a nice poly sleeve. It's ready to go, set to go when you go home. Some record stores, they do price. It's a security thing. We put the ticket right on there, so no one's screwing around with it.
Yeah,
That's
it'd be easy to slip off the poly sleeve.
Yes.
And this is another thing we'll get into with security, but to what end?
Yeah, it's not customer convenient. And, I worked, many years with retail, and often, when security gets involved, security is not about customer convenience. It's about trying to save your inventory, trying to save your profits so you don't lose it. So with security, we come up with all kinds of different things. None of it's generally customer friendly, but there's a reason for it. In a case like this, it can happen. You can move the poly sleeve, but is it worth the inconvenience of the customer? And that's what you got to measure. I mean, it's a scale you're using, how important. If you're getting ripped off right and left, it may be a different thought.
If we're a smaller store, so it's easy enough to kind of keep an eye on things security-wise where we know that. And plus, it's most of the time it's just me, so I'll know that this really rare Pink Floyd record is not $2. Yeah. That's not always the case.
Well, I was in a store in Ohio. It's not in the greatest area of the world. But, all the records were in sleeves, but they were sealed. And there's signs, do not break the seal. When you come up to the register, we will open that seal for you and you can look at the record.
Wow.
Yeah, it kind of stunk because you're just browsing. You want to look. You don't want to be piling up a bunch of stuff to go find out to see what the quality is. But it was in an area. There is no doubt there's theft there. And so this is what they decided to do. Totally inconvenient. I didn't buy as much.
Because it slowed you down.
Yes.
So this gets to the next thing. The customers want to be able to inspect used vinyl. Should there be an expectation that as a record store you should put out clean vinyl, or should you just look at it, see what it is, slap a price tag on it, and put it on the shelf?
Yeah. I see both ways. I see a lot of stores where they don't clean it. I like it clean. That just says this record store cares about the vinyl. They're thinking about their customer. It takes time. I'll come in here and this, cleaning. Abby's here. They're cleaning records constantly cleaning. And we all know record cleaning is not the most fun thing to do. It stinks, but it's part of the business. But it takes time. It costs you money personally. If you have to hire someone to help and for you to do it, it is part of your day. But during slow times, it's easier. You can get that done. Others are it just comes down to, I really don't want to do it. It's not worth it. I'll put it out there, go home and clean it. I like to bring home a record and it's ready to go. I can put it on the turntable instead of firing up the spin clean.
And from the owner standpoint, I know bigger stores that move a lot more inventory, it's just not feasible to do. But at the same token, that gets us into pricing. Okay, I pulled this record out, and I have, my days off, I go to record stores as well, and I pull something out, and it's absolutely filthy, but it has the price tag if this were a clean record, because technically it would be if the customer cleans it. So where do you fall on this whole notion of what the record stores should and shouldn't be doing as far as pricing vinyl? This is a toughie.
Yeah. When it comes to pricing, I've seen it really all over the place. And I was telling you, there was, I went to one store and they had you could buy a membership for $100. Now, the vinyl was priced very high in the store. It was like grails. I mean, it was stuff you never see anywhere. Extremely high price. When you go onto Discogs, you think a high price on Discogs, we're going to go one above it. But if you get this membership, we're going to cut down that price. And so you had a $100 membership, but now the price is lower, but still very high. Now the store is beautiful. I mean, it was like walking into someplace really, a boutique. Very much a boutique, and very well done, clean, beautiful furniture, flowers. I mean, it was amazing. But the pricing, oh my God! To me, when I look at the pricing, and I do, whenever I shop, what I do, I go put it in Discogs, and you're checking. If I'm paying a lot for that, I'm probably not coming back.
So really, it's almost like a Sam's Club or Costco membership model.
Yes, I've had a number. Most record stores, you don't pay for that membership. They give you a punch card. There's one I see down in the Kalamazoo area. I have a punch card, so they just cross it off every time, and then you get a special discount when it's done. That's cool. That's fine. Does it make me go there more often? Not necessarily, but it's nice when you get that. But some, they do charge, and I've had others where buy our membership, join this, we'll give you special deals. Well, bring the price down to a reasonable level at the start. I think a place, like the one that I talked about, they really were trying to go more to a different type of customer. It's not about a dollar store because they're not going to have dollar records in there. They're trying to go to more of a higher income customer. I mean, and it just, you felt that way when you get in. Was it a nice experience in there? Yes, except when you went to the register and shelled out the bucks. And then you go back and go, God, they charged a lot for that one.
This comes down to demographics, though. Typically, I have found that smaller towns, smaller cities, you're not going to get the traffic. And so to move product more effectively, that's what we do. We try to price within the Discogs median. You go to a bigger city, you're going to start getting up into that upper level of Discogs, or God forbid, the eBay prices.
Good old eBay. Yeah, there was a guy, I was visiting with someone. I used to have a record store and used eBay pricing. And you go, well, this is what it is on eBay. Yeah, it's eBay, though. Is it really the right way to go? Because then you look in Discogs, and it's like, boy, I think you got too much on this. But that's what that person was comfortable. They didn't know anything about Discogs, so they weren't using it. So yeah, definitely a city store is more expensive. No doubt about it. You do have a great selection. You're going to find probably some really cool stuff out there. But be prepared. This store very much is medium price. I know that. I know I'm not going to get charged. If it's a very good plus, it's going to come in. It's going to be the right price.
And again, from that business owner side of things, it really comes into play. Rents in bigger cities for a store are going to they'll blow you away. You got to sell a lot of $2 records or fewer $30 records to get to that point. So let's talk a little bit about the physical presence of a store. What can record stores do to make that easier, not just in the pricing, but we're talking about things like the lighting, the bin type of layout, the sound quality happening around you?
There was a record store. Actually, it was a CD shop. This was a number of years ago. I went in, and it was so dark, and the shelving was really tight. I mean, they were trying to put a whole bunch of CDs in a small place. You felt like you were in a dungeon, and I was trying to read the titles, and of course, how CDs are lined up. It's really, you have to get in close to see what CD is this, because they're all bookshelved in there. It was awful. It just finally, nice guy that was running it, but it was so dark, I had to leave. You need lighting. There's been places I've gone in, they're kind of dark. You get back home, you look, oh my God, this is scratched up. I should have took out my flashlight and been looking at it more. That fluorescent lighting can really fool you at times.
It can.
And I've been fooled many, many times and still haven't quite figured out. Look it over a little bit harder before you go out. But I think, you want well lit because just psychologically, a brighter place puts you in a better mood. I know you can have mood lighting, but you want to make it easier to browse, and put yourself in a great mood.
And it's not a rave club. I went to a store recently, it was a few months back, where it was kind of the mixture of this. You went in the front of the store and everything was very bright because they had a nice window front. But the further back into it was a long store, one of the laid out long. You've got further back, it got darker. The walls were painted dark. And then as you got back into the corner, they had some sort of a strobe light effect happening in the back to kind of go with their music. It almost felt like the record should have had one of those seizure warnings on them as you're thumbing through them. But I found that to be tremendously disconcerting because it's like I'm trying to look at records. The music is thrumping and pounding. Yeah. This strobe light is flashing, and I'm having trouble seeing what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I definitely don't like when the music's way too loud. That's distracting to me, and I just nah. And as far as like the bins, if they're packed, it's hard to shop. And I will go in. I was recently in one where the bins were packed, and so you had to take out a bunch to start to flip. The thing is, they had like 10 of the exact same album in the bins. That's what it's just, well, we have these, let's put them all out like someone's going to come in and take them all. It was maddening. You're just going, oh, look, there's the same Neil Diamond one, Heartlight, Heartlight, Heartlight. And then we went into the next one, same thing over. If they just would have tried to eliminate some of that, it would have been easy to shop. If you can't sit there and flip through them easy, chances are you're not going to buy as much because you get a little frustrated, personally. But some people love it.
It makes it much easier, and quite frankly, it's better on the records physically to not smash them into there.
Yeah, because you're yanking them out, having to shove them back in.
That's how you get edge dings. Do you want edge dings? Because
Yes.
that's how you get edge dings. So what about listening stations? This is one that has plagued me here. Bigger stores will have little booths set up with a turntable that you can pop it off, you can put the record on and listen to it. Personally speaking, well, first off, we don't have the space for it here in our store. But secondly, it's like, do I really want someone that's coming in and looking at a $50 or $60 record? I want them to be comfortable with their purchase, but at the same time, do I want them handling it with a needle that could devalue it if they slip?
I enjoy listening stations as I'm going and I'm finding weird things that I don't know what it is. Now, here, I know I can come up to you. It's a small enough store. What's this look like? You'll pull up on the computer. You'll drop it on the turntable for me. But in a bigger store, if you don't have that, the listening station's great. You can go listen to this and find out, gosh, I'm glad I didn't buy that. Or, wow, I need this, and maybe I'll get something else from the artist. My biggest problem for listening stations is figuring out how it works. They're all different. You're looking at this, well, it's not making a sound. Then you're trying to find someone looking, how's this work? I don't get it. So, the stupid old guy can't figure that one out, everyone. Send someone over there. But I enjoy that aspect of it when I'm trying something new.
And you mentioned it, though. We're small enough to be able to do that, whether you can call up a sound sample on a computer or physically drop it. And I do that a lot for customers. Is this scratch going to give me any noise? I said, well, let's check it out together. Put it on there. We'll listen to it. Not a problem doing that. But, we like to play vinyl here. I have been into stores, by the way, that don't play vinyl. Record stores that don't play vinyl.
Wow.
They're just carrying digital. But that's a whole other story on that side. But
the one thing, though, if you don't have a listening station, so someone like me comes in, is I would buy a whole bunch of stuff that normally I would not have and then be upset when I get home. Oh, my God, I bought that. So
sorry, no refunds.
Yes.
The other side of that, I get a lot of people, because we don't have listening stations, they'll call it up on their phone. So they're listening to this on their phone and they're trying to get a sound sample, which is cool. But again, we'll keep our music turned down a little bit so they can do that. This gets back to our discussion of security. We have talked, and I think we talked last week, about a store that's no longer in existence where the owner would be no phones, no this, no that, no this, no this. It gets a little weird, and I have read other complaints about record store owners following people around, whether it be for security or if they're worried that people are checking out, can I get this record at a cheaper deal online somewhere?
Yeah.
Versus somebody who's just listening to a sound sample.
I've seen people followed in stores. I've probably been followed a few times, just keeping an eye out. What's he doing? And it's owners that are really paranoid. And you can be the only one in there. It says, for God's sakes, they keep straightening the racks wherever you're at. Can I help you? Which is the classic retail line. Can I help you? And they just keep at it. And it's you want to shop in peace. I understand the reasons and how do you use, well, I'm going to watch this person, but that person looks okay. I mean, it's a difficult line that you have to follow in a record store, and yours is smaller. You can keep an eye on things, but the bigger stores, it gets tough. And even when I worked in retail, there would be people we knew. These are, they steal. Send someone out there.
Well, we have security cams too to kind of pick up on that.
Yeah.
This leads us into another great subject one to wrap up with. And this is, we played that little clip from High Fidelity earlier, a knowledgeable staff versus an arrogant staff.
It would just be fun to be the arrogant staff. I mean, you just want to do that whole Jack White thing to someone.
Jack Black.
Yeah, Jack Black. Yeah, sorry, Jack. Well, maybe, yeah, Jack Black. You just want to do that to somebody. Just go, well, why would you do that? What's wrong with you? And
that music sucks. You don't want it.
Oh my God, that would be funny. I will say, when I go places, I find just wonderful people in record stores. Even the place that had all the no signs, the person was very friendly and would talk, because I try to take time to go talk to the staff. I like to ask for recommendations and things like that. And I love a store that has like what you could call the holy moly wall. I wrote down, I wrote down the Grail wall, the holy moly wall, the wallet buster wall, or the wall of temptation. That, when I walk in, that's the first place I go, because that's the cool stuff. I can't always afford it, but I look at it and go, wow, look at that.
That comes down to the way to display. I mean, yeah, I've seen stores where they're actually shelved and you're looking at the spines. That's horrible. But bins, you can look at the front. But yeah, the more that you can show people the artwork on that album cover, the easier time. Oh yeah, I like that one. Cool.
Artwork sells. There's a reason for art, and then you'll have your special, your higher ticket stuff in a special location. And I will always go to see, because I'm looking for certain grails. And that's where I head first thing every time.
It does help to have that knowledgeable staff, because as we talked last week, there's a lot of new people coming into this whole idea of collecting vinyl. And I'm not perfect, and I'm learning things every day, and I'm open to learning things every day. So when somebody says, well, what is this? I either know it or I don't. I'm not going to fudge it. If I don't know it, I'll look it up and I'll say, that's what Discogs says this genre is. Let's listen to it together here. Versus things that I do know a little bit about, which I'll pass that on. Yeah, but I never try to Jack Black my way through it.
Yeah, there's a lot of crazy genres anymore. We pulled up stuff. What
is this?
Yep.
So hopefully that helps. I mean, far be it from me, a small town record store owner, to tell these big stores how to do it. At least we're not the big box stores that have stuff both packed in there and staff that's not knowledgeable in the least. But
yeah, it makes a difference. The cool stuff, you got to go to a record store to find the cool stuff. A used record store. That's where the excitement really is, and the digging. For those that love digging, it's where you got to go.
And the discovery, because you can find new stuff, and if you like it, great. If you don't, well, I'll try it next time.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, cool, Steve. Thank you very much. And thank you all again for listening to Two Guys Talking About Records, a vinyl community podcast. As we approach our 9th and 10th shows coming up, or episodes coming up, I think next week we're going to have a decompression show just talking about Record Store Day, a follow-up, because we're recording these on a Sunday, so that'll be my day after Record Store Day. So you're going to be lucky to get 2 coherent sentences out of me in a time. So
at least you hope so. You want to finish that day being exhausted because you helped so many people.
Yep. So we'll follow up on that. But if you have any suggestions or comments, please feel free to reach out to us either here at Radio Wasteland Records or through Steve's YouTube channel.
Yep. Steve Carlson, Vinyl Community.
And you can find us at radiowastelandrecords.com. Feel free also, these are going up on YouTube in the podcast section there. So Look for that, and you can comment on the YouTube page as always, or I do believe that there is comment capability on the Podbean stuff as well.
Oh, okay. And, if you're watching my video, I also have a link in the description.
Yep. We'll have them on there. So thank you all again for joining us, and we will talk to you sort of next week after Record Store Day and see how that goes. Thanks again, Steve.
Hey, thank you, Jim. Have a great one.